Hello YouTube, this is my first blog type video and depending on how it goes I might continue to make more. About 2 weeks ago I wrote a post entitled Crashing the Wave, Feminism and Atheism Plus, which was about what I thought of the inception of the Atheism Plus movement and the role feminism plays within it. I spent a lot of time talking about why I don't think feminism is a good thing, and not actually much about Atheism Plus specifically. This was mostly because Atheism Plus was, and still is in its early days, and the focus of the piece was on how it has the feminist ideology at its core. There was a substantial amount of criticism in the comments which I attempted to answer in a nutshell, but I wanted to do a piece regarding some of the questions that were raised to give a proper and full response, and at the same time use that as a springboard to make it clear how I feel about Atheism Plus. You can see the full original discourse on the blog, though there's a bit to read through. I haven't edited, deleted or withheld any comments. Also, for the sake of brevity, I'll only read through the concerns related to the broader topic, since it will be the most relevant and interesting, but you can read the full list on the blog. Okay, criticism number 1. Why Atheism Plus is divisive in a bad way when other groups that use moral distinctions aren't. I'm assuming this is in reference to the comment that says groups that support, for example, Indigenous rights and do not tolerate people who view Aborigines as lesser beings are divisive. The reason Atheism Plus is divisive is not because they exclude certain people, but because they make a point of it. They call people to pick sides and actively spout their self-righteousness. This is the same us versus them attitude that is causing a schism. Right now, all that's really doing is creating malice and arguments where there need not be any. Name-calling, burning bridges between people who would otherwise work together, etc. A good example of this is Anna Johnston's comments on Greta Christina's blog post, Atheism Plus's first project A+ Scribe. You can see that she raises some calm criticism about respecting intellectual property. She gets piled on, called an asshat, labelled as disingenuous and threatened with the banhammer. Anna came to the project with goodwill, wanting to help work on it, and after that she was done with the accusations and negative assumptions being hurled at her, and said, "Good luck, I'm off." This atmosphere of ganging up on people, that raise even the slightest concern about the direction of the movement, or in this case of one project, encourages groupthink. Agreeing with the people in the group and making decisions as a group without listening to individual concerns. Their attitude is that they don't tolerate unfair criticism, but they also think that any criticism of their moral justice system is unfair. In effect, they distance themselves from any criticism. I don't think I need to explain why this is unreasonable. Criticism number 2. How Atheism Plus is an extension of feminism in any sense that distinguishes it from its other focuses. One of my commenters, Jara, said, "Of course feminism features prominently due to the recent events of the last year, but it is not the core focus of Atheism Plus. The forums are filled with discussions on animal rights, immigration, economics, male circumcision, racism, Iran, mental health, atheism, etc. Looking quickly at the first page of the 25 topics, less than 1/4 of them are on feminism, implying that it's the same ideals of feminism at its core plus the focus on intersectionality. This is in one light true, but it would be just as true to say that it has racial rights at its core plus the focus on yada yada yada." Okay. Firstly, the inception of Atheism Plus was prompted by Jen McCright's dissatisfaction with the response to feminism in atheist circles. She says on her blog post entitled, "How I Unwittingly Infiltrated the Boys Club in White's Time for a New Wave of Atheism, I was welcomed with open arms until I started talking about feminism. The idea of starting a new movement began there with feminism by feminists. Feminism is the base ideology that tints the lens through which all of their focuses are viewed. I think feministic social justiceism is a much better description than Atheism Plus. It was originally described as a new wave of atheism, just like there were different waves of feminism. Jen describes the third wave of atheism as a wave that isn't just a bunch of middle-class, white, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied men." Jara says, "Atheism Plus was inappropriately initiated as a third wave of atheism, but that is not what it is, or what it now claims to be." I would have to agree. Evidently, atheism is only a peripheral part of Atheism Plus. As I said in the closing of my piece, it really depends on where Atheism Plus goes from here. If they truly are keen on skepticism and rationality, then feminism will be dropped. I think by that point the group would break down though, because feminist ideology is the basal structure upon which all their contentions rest. Next criticism. Why you believe Jen is lying. I'm assuming this is in response to where I reinterpreted Jen saying, "Whatever, I just want change," as, "I really want people to join my movement, but I can't justify my fancy new label." I don't think she's lying per se. She definitely wants change, but of course only the kind of change that she herself is pushing for. She doesn't care if people call themselves something else, as long as they agree with her and they are working towards her goals. In other words, she wants people to join her movement, but doesn't care if they adopt her label. Next criticism. Why you think that feminists are being deceptive even though all the examples you have provided are taken from sources where they describe and justify what they are doing. Presence of a justification doesn't automatically make it justified. There are good reasons to be skeptical, for example, when feminist advocates reference statistics that don't exist, are taken out of context, or are simply made up, and also the history of willful deception and lies that come from that side of the fence. In the context of my post, I linked to the sources so that others can read that for themselves and come to their own conclusions. I don't, as a rule, think feminists are deceptive. To go to the example I think is being referred to, when a feminist says, women can't be sexist to men, most people are going to immediately disagree with that because they're assuming the normal definition of sexism, discrimination based on sex, right? However, by bringing in that statement and using a different definition of sexism equals prejudice plus power, they're committing an equivocation fallacy. It boils down to, if you know what I'm talking about, then don't reuse my word with a different definition to refute it. That's deceptive. This alternative definition of sexism is also just a way to deflect accusations of sexism by employing this equivocation fallacy. Next criticism. Why you believe that things like A+Scribe and the fact that less than 1/4 of forum posts are related to feminism doesn't suggest that feminism isn't taking a superior role in Atheism+. Jara's statement was, I simply question your assertion that Atheism Plus is a direct extension of feminism, which is in reference to my blog post, Atheism Plus is an extension of feminism, the next logical step in the expansion of their movement. Feminism is an ideology. There isn't much to talk about with regards to feminism itself that isn't already covered by Feminism 101. To draw an analogy, going onto a forum with a Christian ideology at its core, let's say Christians for World Peace, you wouldn't expect all the threads to be talking about Christianity itself. They would perhaps talk about their goals and problems as like-minded people through the lens of Christianity. Also, the fact that they do something that's not related to feminism in any way is not proof of anything. Next criticism. Why you believe that your experience of being able to avoid insults and oppressive attitudes means that everyone should be able to. Why is this not just a bonus of being privileged? Okay, I don't. I was talking about how we routinely avoid people that make us, as individuals, feel uncomfortable, with the implicit assumption that I'm only talking about cases where that's possible, and that this shouldn't be extended to the group level. By that, I mean groups should not have a hive mind. What affects one person or offends one person need not offend or affect everyone. The important issue here is feeling oppressed does not equal being oppressed. For avoiding oppressive attitudes to be meaningful, actual oppression must first be demonstrated. If my kid has a temper tantrum in the store, I don't announce on the loudspeaker, "Can everyone kindly do everything my child wants?" He's feeling unavoidably oppressed by these privileged adults. Next criticism. What other justification have you got for brushing aside certain attitudes besides the no true Scotsman informal fallacy, or how you rescue this fallacy? Okay, when I invoke the no true Scotsman fallacy, I'm not trying to make an argument from logic. I'm just not. I'm making a comment on how some feminists weasel out of guilt by association with other feminists who don't share their exact views. They respond to criticism by saying, "Oh, but real feminists wouldn't say that. We're against that." Maybe feminists need to start criticizing these fake feminists more proactively instead of using them for strength in numbers than calling straw men when criticized. The exact same thing happens in Christian groups. Statistics are used to show just how many Christians there are, how they're the majority and everything, and used to justify this and that. But as soon as one says something out of line, "Oh, they're not actually a Christian," Christians wouldn't say that because it's against Jesus' message of love. Again, not an argument, just commentary. Next criticism. Why you think that freethought blogs can be perpetrating groupthink despite the fact that the bloggers voice the other side of the argument, and that attitudes are supported by evidence, a process generally considered to be opposed to groupthink? Why is your blog not spouting groupthink in the same sense, or are you just opposed to any group that has large readerships? Alright, the definition of groupthink is the practice of thinking or making decisions as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. We all do it to some degree when we get in close groups. Whether they voice the other side of the argument is almost irrelevant. Nobody wants to be that one person that disagrees with the group. In fact, they've effectively shown what happens in that situation over at Freethought Blogs Land, with Thunderfoot, Anna Johnston, etc. One person starts a movement and the others hop on the bandwagon. I haven't seen any remaining writer on there really criticizing Atheism Plus. You could say it's sort of an unwritten law that they're not allowed to, or that your individual opinions or thoughts are not going to go down well against the majority of writers there. That is groupthink. Alright, that about wraps it up for this video. There are more criticisms, issues, whatever. You can have a look on the actual blog where I have written response. Some of them relate mostly just to the way I write or the way I think or the way I blog. So, anyway, thanks for listening. Have a nice day.